Welcome back to another episode of Right Here in Mass. Joining me today is Chris Earley, the founder and CEO of Earley Law Group Injury Lawyers, a personal injury law firm located in downtown Boston. He's a thought leader in the legal field who writes monthly for the American Bar Association, speaks to audiences of attorneys throughout the country, hosts the Earley Show Podcast, and recently released his memoir, Scaling the Wall, One Man's Journey of Healing Childhood Trauma to Find Fulfillment and Success. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm so happy and grateful to be with you. So I'm really excited to talk with you today.
I'm excited too. You're the first injury law attorney here, so I am very excited to have someone new in the space on the show. And without further ado, I'd love to give you the opportunity to share with our listeners more about you and what you do.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm a family man. I'm married to my wonderful wife, Rory. We live on the South Shore. We have two beautiful, amazing, wondrous children. And I am a very dedicated family man. And on the side, I run a law firm, a scaling, busy, grateful to say thriving law firm in Boston. We're also located in Hingham. And so I really enjoy building my business so that it serves my life and my family's life so that I don't have to work insane, crazy hours so that I can be with my family as much as possible, enjoy meditation, enjoy physical activities, working out. So busy guy, I like to stay busy and keep it moving.
I love it. And especially too meditation. I feel like that's something I've really leaned into probably the past year or so as a business owner. And I feel like focusing on that spiritual, mental aspect of you can really lead to more success. So I love that you brought that point up.
Fantastic. I love it. Do you meditate like regularly or are you kind of sporadic?
I
What?
try to. So I try to listen to a few meditations, at least like one 5 minute one every day, depending on if I have
Fantastic.
more or less time. But I'm like, as long as I do it daily and have that small habit, that's all that matters.
That's so important, so valuable. It just compounds the more you do it. So good for you. I love it.
Yeah, likewise. And so I'm curious to hear what made you want to focus on with your specialty as injury specifically.
So I went to law school and I got out in 2004 and I couldn't get a job. There were no, legal recruiters banging my door down. So having had, the inability to find a job, I just hung a shingle, as they say, and started to practice from scratch. And that was, 20 years ago, but 19 years ago at this point. So I've always been an entrepreneur at heart, and it just felt normal to be an entrepreneur in the law. So I fell into that. Anyone listening to this who's an entrepreneur, I'm sure resonates with you that it's fraught with challenge and adversity, but it's also so worth it, right? If your heart is in it, if you're an entrepreneur by nature, it's a joy. So I really do love running my own law firm. I have an amazing team at the office. We're basically a remote law firm. We're spread throughout the
Mhm.
world, Philippines, Mexico, Texas, Florida, team members throughout. So I really geek out on building a special law firm where people enjoy what they do, feel fulfillment from what they do. Because at my law firm, it's not just personal injury lawyers get a bad reputation. Actually, it's like ambulance
Mhm.
chasers, and that's what we have to deal with. But at my law firm, we are a little different. We are about service, and that starts with me. I like to be a servant leader to my team because the better that I treat my team, the better they're going to treat the clients, and we all thrive that way. So trying to do it differently than it's been done before in terms of really client focused, team member focused, purpose filled work that resonates with people because people don't love lawyers, especially personal injury lawyers. So we have to show up differently, right?
Mhm.
And care. She'll always love care and concern. So that's a long-winded way of answering your question. Just trying to build up a special firm that's different, unique from all the others.
I love it. And I especially appreciate that you started your firm newly out of law school. I'm curious to hear what that was like. If you faced any pushback from potential clients or anyone in the industry for not having worked for another firm before starting your own, or really would just love to hear what that journey was like.
Well, I'm 48, so I just want to drop a lesson for any younger audience members listening. I think you have to act the part, and people will assume you belong. So I didn't know what I was doing. I had a really, really cheap suit, and I just like didn't or cheap few suits. So I didn't have any money, I didn't have any clients, I had nothing, but I had the belief that I'd figure it out. I had someone very close to me at the time say, hey, if it doesn't work out, you can always do, plan B. And I said, screw that. This is going to work out.
Yeah.
So I would encourage the audience, if you act like you belong, people will start to believe that. So I never had clients say, hey, where'd you go to law school? What were your grades? Or, how experienced are you? I think this, in law and all other service industries, is how well can you serve someone? How
Hmm.
well can you help them out in a tough spot? In law, something bad happened, right? If you're listening to this and you do something that's a little less problem filled, like maybe like you're a wedding planner, for example, you deal with the happy day, the most happiest day of someone's life, in many cases, hopefully, ideally, right? But like in my world, it's like something bad happened. So trying to just from the start be authentic, show up for the clients, show them you care. That broke down a lot of walls because I'm sure I was baby faced and didn't have any experience. But when you show up, you care, you show love, care, and concern, and you have confidence that you belong, that people will give you a seat at the table and say, "Okay, sounds good." That's what I find purpose in.
Yeah, it's basically the whole idea from what it sounds like of not just talking the talk, but walking the walk and really being able to prove to your clients that you're going to do what you say you're going to do.
Percent follow through, right? And just
Hmm.
serve. Whatever you do for work, you're serving someone. You're
Yeah.
solving a problem. You're assisting someone in some type of moment in their life. So how can you do it in such a way where they feel really good, right? In my world, yeah, we get people settlement checks, but that's not what we do. It's how do we make them feel throughout that process that led up to that check?
Hmm.
Do we make them feel like they were a file in some called law firm, or do they feel warmth that, geez, this early firm really cares about me? So, whatever the listener, does for work, I think you really have to just focus on people and do the right thing, integrity, a little bit of chutzpah, a little bit of, I think you have to have confidence, obviously, and not be meek and cowardly, but strong and assertive. And again, I keep saying, take your seat at the table. People will welcome you, I find.
Absolutely. And with business owners, there's always, of course, the talk of niching down, picking one area and going all in on it. And of course, you're the perfect example of that, being an injury attorney. And so I'm interested in hearing what made you choose that area of focus and how it's really played out for you throughout these past 19 years of having your firm.
Oh, that's an awesome question, Ashley. Thank you. One of my first clients, mind you, I had no idea what I was doing. Another lesson for the audience, like done is better than perfect. I'm
So
more of
true.
I just sort of swing the bat. I don't wait for like the perfect pitch, the perfect time. Like I just sort of swing. And so I encourage the audience to take your shot. So I had a client who had a case that I was sort of probably like I didn't really know what I was doing, but I figured it out. Again, we played act the part like you belong. They're going to accept you as being competent, and I figured out how to do it. Anyway, long story short, I settled her case. As my first case, it was a good amount of money. It allowed the client to buy a home in her native country of Paraguay in South America. Literally could buy a home with that money in her country. That was very pivotal for me because it's like, wait, you can really help people out. Like you
Mhm.
can actually impact. And I love dealing with everyday people going up against powerful insurance companies. I enjoy that because I've always sort of been an underdog in many ways. So I like fighting for the underdog against the more powerful Goliath insurance company, making an impact, basically like a street lawyer representing people as I find them, they had an accident, they needed help against an insurance company who isn't too concerned about their well-being. They just are concerned about, profit. So that one client was transformative and told me that I was on the right path. So I hate to say it again, another lesson. If you think you're on the wrong path, move. It doesn't matter how young
Yeah.
or old you are. If you're on the wrong path, like take a turn, because I think you really need and must do work that lights you up, that gives you that purpose we've been talking about. So I found purpose early and I just sort of leaned into that. And so I was grateful to find that niche for sure.
Definitely. And you brought up a good point too, which is the idea of like adapting and shifting and going with the right path, which I think is really relevant right now at the time of this recording. I mean, AI is something that's being brought up all over, and if people aren't embracing it, there's talks about them potentially falling short, so to say, compared to people who are embracing it fully. And so I'm curious to hear how you have taken those points in your career of adapting and shifting as necessary to continue on that path of success instead of falling back, if that makes sense.
100% makes sense. I think the most successful people out there are forever learners, like
Hmm.
always geeking out on a podcast, reading a book, going to a conference. I'm flying to Utah for like 48 hours just for a business meeting with some other entrepreneurs. I just think you have to always be growing. And in the law, we're generally like 10 years behind the rest of society because the law is slow to evolve, slow to adapt. But this is such a golden opportunity for people of all ages to leverage AI, to get really good at prompts, to get good at these platforms, because the barrier to entry in terms of being an entrepreneur has never been lower, I feel like. There's
Yeah.
just such capability that social, you can get clients on social, right? As you know so well, you get clients from Chat GPT now, right? Or from Chat is popping up on Google searches. The quicker you adapt and accept what is now, the better you are. You will leapfrog people if you're able to anticipate what's coming. You may not always get that right, but if you can anticipate what people want, like I think it was Jeff Bezos who was always so obsessed, almost like maniacally obsessed with customers. What do they want? What are they gonna want? Because I talk actually with lawyers constantly in my industry, people outside the law. I think you have to be Jeff Bezos in terms of focusing on the customer. That's the business owner who wins, right? Is focusing almost maniacally on what does the customer want. I say all the time, when I order something today on Amazon, I don't have to call Jeff Bezos and say, "Hey Jeff, where's my package?" He delivers it. Like
Yeah.
it's so, and I say this to lawyers a lot and non-lawyers, like we're being in business, we're being compared to Amazon. Even though we have a small business, right? We're being compared to AT&T, to Amazon, to these providers of services that really have it figured out. So I think the better you can serve people and adapt to technology, leverage technology, which is so exciting right now, I think you're going to leapfrog so many people in the industry.
I totally agree. And I'm so glad that you brought up the point about really focusing on your customer and thinking about who they are and what it is that they're really looking for. But it makes me think of a problem that a lot of business owners have is finding the juggle between working on your business and working in your business. And that what I feel like is kind of alluding to that is like people know that they need to be growing and improving and developing, but if they're so busy just actually doing the work, it's how do they actually end up finding the time to make sure that they're improving and adapting and shifting as needed. And so I'm curious to hear if you have advice on that of just juggling those two aspects of being a business owner.
Where do I start, right? That's the whole conundrum, is working on as opposed to in the business. There's a really
Mhm.
good book. Many maybe have already heard it. Maybe you've already, read it. The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, right? Fantastic, right? Really good book. I encourage anyone who has not read it, buy it on Amazon now, or whatever. Go to your local bookstore. The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. That really was like a whiplash moment for me because for years I was a technician in terms of working on files, but you can only do that so much. You need people.
Mhm.
I think it's actually it all comes down to people. That's how you can grow a business, through people, through procedures in place. Now AI can, like, what took days to create a process and procedure can take you 4 seconds, right? With AI, it's marvelous. But you will only grow to a certain capacity, a certain size if it's just you. Or if it's just you and one other person, great. But you're not. If that's your perfect life, beautiful, fantastic. You've found success. But if you need more, you have to, as you said, so accurately, you need to work on the business. That means you need to bring people in to work the process and procedures.
Mhm.
But I'm very, driven on that mindset because some of us um, are guilty of, being the technician, the owner, the manager in one. But in that book, The E-Myth, which is a really watershed book, he talks about this woman who bakes pies and she starts a business. And she finds that she's getting crushed. She's making the pies, she's paying the bills. She can't do it all. And then she
Mhm.
starts to hire people. So she buys back her time, as they say. She buys her time. So she's able to grow. But your skill in delegating, and first of all, finding the right people, right? We got to find the right people to bring on the bus to help us on the journey. Find those right people, because that's the name of the game. You could set up procedures and processes in 5 seconds nowadays. That's the challenge, the people challenge, getting the right people on the bus, training them up, treating them like rock stars, investing in them, understanding that you work for them. They don't work for you. You work for them to make sure that they never regret joining your organization. and then you get out of their way, and then they could just crush it for you. That expands your ability to grow. So like the reason why I'm able to talk with you right now on this great podcast, I have an amazing team who's churning out the legal product, right? Who is doing the legal technical work, because I love these conversations, right? That I'm having with you, business development. Because when I do these things, I learn a lot. Like I'm learning from you. I hope to share, a little bit of knowledge with the audience and with you. But like I think this goes back to what we talked about earlier, being a forever learner, growing, reading books, consuming content, getting better at running a business as opposed to just working in the business. I think that's like the American dream. But that is predicated on having nerve,
Hmm.
right? Again, act like you belong, taking your seat. You need to be nervy to take your seat at the table. Like you have to be very assertive and uncomfortable, and it's scary. But that's not for everyone. Like I would encourage someone to start a business if they didn't gel or jive with that whole mindset of going for it. Like my idea of going for it is much different than someone else's idea of going for it. But whatever you're doing, as we talked about before, if you're on the right path, stay there and keep going and get better and better. If you're on the wrong path, pivot like yesterday and find something that lights you up. Life is way too short, I find.
100%. And I'm so glad that you brought up the people part because I think that is incredibly important. Because, like you shared with the E-Myth, I mean, the story that they tell there is being able to take yourself out of the equation and bring in people who can help you execute really on your vision. And so I
Totally.
think that's great advice. I worked with a business coach once, and one thing she said to me was, the biggest regret you'll have with hiring is not hiring sooner. And I said, you're so right. When you wait too long, you're like, why didn't I do this sooner than I did? And so, for anyone who's listening to this episode, who's at that point in their business where they are ready to hire, bring on employees or subcontractors, whatever it might be, what advice do you have around that, knowing that you've been able to build out a team yourself?
Well, we said the most important thing is minds is people. I actually want to amend that and say it's mindset because, to your point just
Hmm.
now, you need the right mindset to let go of. They say let go of the vine, let go of
Yeah.
control, or this white knuckle control that the entrepreneur has. You need to let go of that. You need to get out of your own way. Allow people to help you. I think everything is about mindset, right? Are you a growth minded person? Are you not? I think that's the key. I'm very growth oriented, always looking for opportunities. That's why I reached out too. I said, Ashley, I'd love to be on your show, right? Like you need to like go out and ask for opportunities and hunt things down, or else like you're not going to grow, right? So
Totally.
now, right? And so think about the power of this podcast. I'm going to distribute this to my network. It's going to go out to your network. That's like exponential growth. So, but again, I couldn't have done this show with you today if I had a mindset, no, I'm the only technician that can handle the cases, right? Is to turn out the casework. No, we need to get in that mindset of letting go and being okay with uncomfortable. Like you have to be willing to let go of that vine and know that you're going to figure it out. Yeah, you're going to get your butt kicked on the daily, probably. But that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you take those hits, keep going. That's what entrepreneurship is about. But I feel like, Ashley, the more you grow, the harder it becomes because you have bigger and harder challenges as you level up, as you continue to grow. I thought it'd be the opposite. I thought, oh, it gets easier. No, it actually gets harder. And so that's what we talk about. You have to join. You just talk about coaching. Everyone here listening should have a coach, no matter what you're doing. You should have some type of coach. It doesn't have to be painfully expensive. I encourage you, everyone should have a coach, right? That's where you really can level up. I think we're hitting so many topics. Like we're just
I
covering
know,
everything,
oh my gosh, it's so good.
right? No, I mean, this is a good conversation because like we're hitting so many things that like if the listener actually takes one or two things away, they've leapt forward in their career. They've taken
Oh,
a step forward.
absolutely.
But it's useless to listen to us talk and do nothing. Like you have to pull the trigger, execute, do something to move yourself forward in your career.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I'm curious to hear what you would recommend about building a client base. I know that especially now, in the times that we're in with economic uncertainty, that's one thing I'm seeing a lot from business owners is like things are slow right now, depending on their industry. And so knowing that you have been through the recession of 2008 in your business, I mean, I'm curious to hear what you found worked well for you and your firm during those tumultuous economic times.
So the name of the game is we talked about people mindset, but we need clients and customers, or else we don't pay our
Yeah.
bills. So they help us pay the bills. So how do we acquire customers? And ideally, how do we have a stream of customers and clients walking through our door constantly? In my industry, I market. I'm on billboards. We do heavy SEO investment. So um, we are competing in the marketplace for business, trying to get eyeballs on our brand, right? Because that's what we're all doing here. No matter if you're selling, you're selling something at a store, you're selling legal services, you're a hairdresser, you're this, that. Ooh, I don't care. You need this. And you have a brand you're developing, okay? And so the better that you can build that brand. So, we hear this all the time. Are you someone people know, like, and trust? Great. How do we expand that pie? How do we get more people to know us, like us, and trust us? I leverage things like LinkedIn. We just talked about LinkedIn before we hit record.
Hmm.
LinkedIn is a great way to expand your network, but you have to know who you're targeting, like who your potential clients are. But this goes back to mindset. You can't just like be in the shadows and hope people find you online or just randomly fall into your lap. Like you have to be aggressive in acquiring clients. Now, you have the client, great. So I have a new client today, John. How do I make John so freaking happy to be a raving fan? He's going to refer his family, friends, and colleagues to me, right? So we can expand our services because the more work we have, the more we can hire people and provide, a great place to work. So you have to, if I was starting from scratch, I would get a database because that's where your power is, your list of people who know you, like you, and trust you. I would sit down and turn my cell phone off and go into a room where no one can bother me and create a database of people who know me, who are in my network. Then what I would do, I would start an email campaign. I would give them value each and every week. I would send an email. If I'm a hairdresser, hairstylist, I'm going to talk about giving value to people who care about their hair, right? I'm going to let them know that I'm open for business. I want your business. I love your referrals. I would start that email marketing, which is very, very short money. I would make sure I'd post on LinkedIn once a day, like literally once a day. I would post to Instagram, and I would make sure that everyone that I know, again, knows that I'm open for business. I'm trying to get more appointments in my salon, right?
Hmm.
You do these things every day, like consistently, you're going to get a lot of business. This flywheel will accelerate and people will refer, but you have to be in it for the long game. I feel like this is a very hard process, but the better you are at focusing, we talk about Jeff Bezos, get inside the customer's head. What do they want? And how can you really deliver the best product to them? It's a foregone conclusion. You're going to get tons of referrals because that's, I think, the best uh, customers is a referral because they come warm. You don't have to sell
Yeah.
them. They already pre-sold. Is that helpful?
Yes, it is. And I'm so glad that you brought up LinkedIn because for our listeners, before Chris and I started recording, I complimented him on his LinkedIn posts. And I think you do a really good job of building a personal brand while owning a law firm. And I don't think enough business owners do that. When they do have a company that has a team, they tend to neglect their personal brand. And I think that's such a huge missed opportunity. And so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that and how it's worked out for you being able to be like brand yourself as Chris Early as you have your law firm beside you.
So that's my job as a law firm owner, is business development. I owe it to my team who many of them left jobs, Ashley. They had good paying jobs and they came to take a chance on early. How can I repay them? How can I make it so they look back and say, damn, I'm so happy I joined early. Well, I have to make sure the firm is always growing.
Hmm.
So I do what I call the ugly work. It's hard posting to LinkedIn every single day. It's ugly. It's like, what am I going to write about? Is this going to, fall flat? Like, is this going to resonate with anyone? One lesson I want to share: when you're uncomfortable to hit post, when you think it's too edgy or too controversial, that's when you hit post because that's when you
Yeah.
hit send. Because that's what people want to hear. Break down, cut across the noise and the monotony and take a position, especially in law. It's super easy to do it because everyone is very sort of vanilla, straight laced, kind of
Hmm.
conformist. I like to sort of disrupt that and not be a clown, obviously, but to stand out. Um, and so I think again, it all comes down to brand building. But if you're not posting on LinkedIn, you're way too late for the party.
Yeah.
right? And I'm sure at some point something will replace LinkedIn, but if you're seeking other, if you're seeking to build your brand, no matter what brand it is, I would encourage you to leverage LinkedIn. I would encourage you to post to Instagram. As you know, right, and do so well. You have to get really good at that stuff. That's like those are table stakes, so easy. That what I sound like a curmudgeon old man here, but like that wasn't there in 2004. There was no social media. And now you lay on to this mix. You have social media, you have AI. As we said earlier, it's like the barrier of entry has been like really reduced. It's still hard as hell,
Yeah.
but there's many opportunities we have that weren't always there. It's just there for the taking, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. And for anyone who's listening to this episode who's an attorney themselves and they're thinking of leaving a firm that they're at to start their own firm, what advice would you have for them for becoming their own boss?
Don't. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, no. I jump up and down. Yes, yes, yes. I'm very pro entrepreneurship, pro business owner. But you have to be really honest with yourself, right? So when I did this, I wasn't married. I had no kids. I was just a bachelor. Again, had no money at all, and I just sort of like let it fly. If you're older and you're advanced into your career, maybe that's going to be tough. Maybe you have a couple kids, and maybe you're married, and it's tricky. I think life gets really hard if your partner isn't supportive of your dreams and your aspirations. Like my wife is always like,
Totally.
go in the ring, do what you got to do to make it happen. And she's down, like she's down for that. But if your partner is not supportive, it's going to be a tough slog. And I've seen it happen time and time again with lawyers. But no, the best time to plant your seeds for your business was yesterday, right?
Mhm.
So if you're going to do it, let's get off our butt and just make it happen. You have to be willing to do it. You have to want to, it's very seductive to get, the paycheck. Well, someone signs your check, but if you're the entrepreneur or business owner, you're signing checks, and that's tricky. How are you
Mhm.
going to be paid? Those are some things you have to worry about. If you are risk tolerant, I would encourage you to start a business. And again, to read, to acquire knowledge, be a forever learner, get really good at this stuff, um, and saturate your mind with as much intelligence, business acumen as you can find. I went to actually a low tier law school, had average grades, nothing special, and now I'm in a position where I'm able to hire attorneys. So like I really want to underscore where you go to school, whether or not you go to school, I don't know if it really matters today as much as it
I
has in the past,
agree.
right? It's like what can you do to help people out? If you're really good at that, the business is going to come. But like uh, you don't, let's not overthink this. Like it's not that complicated, right? Just swing the bat. The more you swing, you're going to connect. You're going to hit singles, doubles, and home runs, hopefully, but you have to be willing to put yourself out there. But there's nothing worse than regret. So if you truly, if the listener wants to start a business, just do it. I highly encourage it. Anyone can do it, but you have to be that guy or gal that's okay with discomfort and pain. A greater promise of a better tomorrow.
Absolutely. And I'm curious to hear a mistake that you've made being a business owner that you wish you didn't make for learning purposes for our listeners. And along those lines, something you wish you knew now, or something you know now that you wish you knew back then, ultimately.
Where do I start? Oh my God, do we have enough time for this? No, I mean, if I just boil it down, we talk about mindset. I had a scarcity mindset. I would never in a million years network with a competitor. I would never think that there's an abundant flow of cases out there. I would think scarcity,
Hmm.
zero sum game. You sign up a client, well, that's one client that I don't have. Now it's like, hey, there's abundance out there, legit. Like the universe is filled with abundance. There's so many opportunities. You want to, again, hairdresser, lawyer, like whatever the heck you're doing. I keep talking about hairdresser, it's just on my mind. But whatever it is that you want to do, there's plenty of opportunity to do that. Um, but for years, I was thinking very small terms. Someone very smart said recently, I heard him say, nothing good happens behind a computer. So you need to like get outside. You need to like network, go to, conferences, establish relationships because that way you're going to grow and and expand your business. But again, let's not overcomplicate it. It's pretty easy to do. As long as you have that nerve, it's going to go out. And I can assure you, there's abundance of clients out there and customers that are waiting, to do business with you. But I think the mindset is something that I wish I had shifted earlier. But I've also learned I'm 48 again. There's nothing worse than regret or looking back. I can't
Mhm.
change how I was at 28 or 38. I can control 48 right now, which is wonderful. So you're going to make some mistakes. You're going to swing a lot. You're going to miss the ball and you're going to strike out, but that's okay. But I think if you have that right mindset, everything trickles down from that big time.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like when I first started my business in the first probably 2 years, I thought that the key to success was 90% strategy and 10% mindset. But now I'm like, nope, it's 90% mindset, 10% strategy.
Flipped
And
it.
you
Right.
literally, and I think any business owner who embraces that will find that too. And so I'd love to hear just more about your mindset work and how you've incorporated that into your business and your success as a firm owner.
So we tried meditation. I'm a devout meditator. I had a really scary moment professionally. I thought I was going to get sued for malpractice. I didn't get sued for malpractice, but I realized at that moment I needed some relief from I needed space from this profession. So I started meditating. When I started meditating, my marriage got better. I'm a better father. My business is better. I'm a better leader. And that ultimately led me to write my memoir, which you alluded to earlier, Scaling the Wall,
Mhm.
which is about getting over childhood trauma, getting over anger issues that were holding me down despite, professional success. Um, I was sort of a very unhappy lawyer. And the law is a really good place to be unhappy because you're an adversary. You fight with people. It's sort of like anger can almost be a good thing in a weird, toxic way. So meditation changed my whole career, my whole life. So I encourage the audience, you have to meditate. I journal now. I journal every day. Try like whatever if you like walk, then walk, but create that space where you can separate from your business. That was really transformative for me. And then I was sort of cooking with gas, as they say. That's that because my mindset, I wasn't angry. I wasn't so short-sighted with the scarcity mindset, thinking more abundantly, bigger. I think it's all about your vision. Do you have vision blockers, right? Or do you have vision enhancers? I think that's a really important part. So once I started to meditate, my clarity got a little more focused. My vision got more, a little more, it got better basically. I was able to sort of sit down and figure out what I want to do, where I want the business to go. But we've talked about a lot of things on this call, which is like, by the way, chock full of value. You and I are dropping a lot of good stuff here. So again, it doesn't do any good unless the audience takes action. But I think, all this comes down to, again, how we think about the world, right? How we think about opportunities, scarcity versus abundance. I think that's a big part of this whole puzzle. But yeah, it's super exciting. Really grateful to be here. But I had to do a lot of work. We all have to do work, however that looks like. It's different for all
Mhm.
of us. I had to do a lot of mental work to get out of anger, to process trauma. I saw very savory things as a young child growing up. So I had to work through that stuff with a very supportive wife. She helped me, but my business would be stagnating unless I grew as a person. So
Totally.
they say the business, right? The business owner is the lid on the business. Like the way you think, how big you think is the lid on your business. So we always have to be expanding, pushing that lid up and up and up. No matter if we just want to have two employees or 200, doesn't matter. Like how much can we grow as a leader of the business or a leader in the making, one who wants to start a business? I think that's super helpful. Again, I go back to creating that space, whatever it is, because if the listener has dealt with is dealing with trauma or has, that stuff's not going to go anywhere. It's very sticky. You need to work on that stuff.
Mhm.
We all have our stuff, our demons, but we need to work on that stuff because the business, you can't like have both ways. You can't like be messed up personally and then have like a strong business. It doesn't work that way, right? You need to have like a holistic, I feel like, effort. And this isn't like something I figured out. I'm never going to figure it out, but I try to work on the personal stuff, focus on that first. And then I feel like that seeps into the business side, if that makes sense.
I totally agree. And that's why I never agreed with people when they would say, well, business isn't personal. I'm like, it is personal. Like, there's so much intersection and cross section. And so I'm glad that you brought that up because it's true. I mean, who you are as a person and how you think totally pours over into your business.
Everything you think about is affecting your business. So my business, your business, every thought we have influences our business. The
Mhm.
people we hire, the customers we serve, the way we talk to our customers, the way we deliver our services. You as the business owner, your thoughts percolate and influence every single thing in the business. So that took me a long time to figure out, but at least I better late than never, right?
Exactly. And you mentioned your memoir, so I'd love to talk more about that. Let's hear about what inspired you to write it and even what the writing process was like.
All right. The writing process was really hard. Again, said earlier, I don't mind ugly work. I don't mind shoveling, you know, uh, doing the shoveling and doing the hard work. But writing the book was freaking hard. I hired a writing coach. Again, I go back to the coaching element. A good coach is worth every penny. Now, one thing about coaching, I do find you get what you pay for generally. And I was thankful to hire a really good writing coach. So I wrote the book because I had an itch to tell this story. It's a bit of an unusual story. I wrote the book actually not to make money. I'm losing money on the deal, and I don't care. I knew I would. I wrote it to spread a message of hopefully inspiration and hope to people who are going through adversity. It could be people dealing with childhood adversity and or adversity into adult years, but we all have stuff. And again, we
Mhm.
talked earlier, and that's a theme here on our talk, is the ability to work through that stuff and do the healing that you need to do to get yourself right so then you professionally can achieve your dreams, right? To achieve where you're
Mhm.
trying to get to. Again, it was a hard process. I wrote the book, it took me a year. Then my coach said, we're gonna have to rewrite this bad boy. So I was like, okay. So I had to rewrite the whole thing from scratch.
Oh
But like it came out
no.
really well. No, but it came out really well. Like and my dream was to get in front of audiences of kids growing up around addiction, around dysfunction, and talk with them.
Mm.
Right. This is a way to establish strong relationships with my clients. I offer it free to all my clients. So they get to know me. And that creates a relationship, right? Not just, again, not an ambulance chaser, a guy who's trying to just help you out during a tough time in your life, and a guy who has had tough times so can relate to, perhaps what you're dealing with yourself. But that's really the ultimate um, asset to have as a business owner is a book,
Mhm.
because it puts you in different categories as an author, right? And so it encourages the audience, if you have an itch to write a book, write it. Start doing that ugly work. I cried actually during my memoir. I almost gave up. It was like I was like, I can't do this because law school, they don't teach how to write creatively. It's like more
Mm.
analytical writing. This is like creative writing, was writing to show rather than writing to tell, which I learned was a difference. So, but like now I'm going to again a conference tomorrow in Utah. I'm going to bring that book with me, right? And so it's a great tool to establish relationships, to further the business, to further um, my interest in helping and inspiring, hopefully, people. That's why I really wrote the book. But hard as hell, it was worth all the pain, though, for sure.
I love it. What advice would you have for anyone who does want to write a book?
Get started and just do it, execute.
Mhm.
We talked about on this call 100 times, like, yeah, well, you could talk about these things, but you have to do the work. You have to like be willing to do it. You just write 500 words a day. That's what I did. I started writing at an airport in the Bahamas. I was on a trip, a business trip, and I saw a guy who I knew indirectly, another personal injury lawyer, wrote a memoir about his upbringing, his adversity. I said, I'm going to write my book. Forget it. Like, end of story. I'm going to write it because I have a story to write. We all have a story inside to write. No matter what your
Mhm.
story is, you have a good story the world needs to hear. But I wouldn't just bang out. I mean, people I'm sure writing books with like ChatGPT. I mean, anything is possible right now. But if you're really going to write a book, I think like starting a business and running a business, you really have to want to do it.
Mhm.
Like you have to want to do that ugly work for a long period of time and not quit. I think I read recently somewhere, Ashley, 90% of books don't get published because people
Yeah.
quit. It's hard. So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
So true. I love that. And I feel like we've shared such good advice. So this might even be a tricky question to answer, but what's like one last piece of advice you'd give to our listeners who are listening into this episode?
Be bold. I wrote about this on LinkedIn yesterday. Be bold.
Mm.
Whatever it is you're trying to do. It's not just about business, about personal. Like you have personal goals, like be bold and pursue them. Because I think this is somewhat just unbiased towards being bold because um, I just find that bold people get ahead, right?
Hmm.
And so be bold. Keep talking about baseball. Get up to the plate and swing that bat and keep swinging. Take your seat at the table, as we said earlier. And I think the world will say, "Oh, welcome. Take a seat. What can we do for you?" Right? You ask for things, you're bold, you ask for things, the world will reward you tenfold, I find.
Totally. And now for a fun question. What would you say your favorite local businesses are to support?
I love, as a small business owner in Hingham, I love supporting Tosca Cafe, fantastic restaurant.
Mhm.
Love Locales is a really good Tex-Mex place in Hingham. And so those are businesses that I like to go on dates with my wife, family dates too. So a couple local, great restaurants for sure. Enjoy those two spots.
Perfect. Chris, this has been a really awesome episode, and I've enjoyed having you on the show to learn more about you and everything you've been doing. And now I'd love to give you the opportunity to share with our listeners where they can find you online in case they'd like to reach out.
Oh, I would love to hear from you. I don't care if you're a lawyer or not, whatever you're doing, I would love to have a conversation with you. If this resonated with you, call me on my cell. My cell is 617-956-2501. Again, 617-956-2501. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to be connected with you. I'd love to, even meet up if you're on the South Shore. We could have coffee. Again, I don't have a whole lot of answers or knowledge, but I'll share with you mistakes I've made, which hopefully you can avoid those mistakes. So I would love to hear from you. And I'd love to give you a copy of my free copy of my book, Scaling the Wall. If you call me or text me, I'm happy to mail you a free copy. But this has been an absolute pleasure, Ashley. I think you have a really good podcast, a good message, good platform. So I'm very grateful. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. And I will include all of your contact information in our show notes so that way our listeners can easily connect with you from there. But thank you so much again for coming on today's show.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Thank you.